Welcome to the Mavens of Marketing, a weekly podcast hosted by me, Rachel Durkin.
And me, Kerry Barrett. We talk all things marketing, innovation, sales, and business growth strategies, and the standard tried and true marketing techniques.
Come for the conversation, stay for the savvy insights.
And the borderline inappropriate jokes. Hi, party people, and welcome to the next episode of the Mavens of Marketing. I am one of your co-hosts. My name is Kerry Barrett, along with the lovely and talented Rachel Durkin. Good morning, my friend.
Good morning. I'm so excited to be here as always.
As always, we're talking tech today, which if I'm honest with myself, and I usually strive not to be, but in this case, I know my weaknesses, and tech is one of them, and how you use AI when it comes to marketing and your strategy and all that good stuff. And our amazing guest today, Roel, how are you?
Thank you. I'm doing terrific.
We are so grateful for your time today, and we're lucky there are people around us that know how to use all this AI stuff. And when I say us, I'm probably just talking about me. I'm sure Rachel knows more about this than I do. But if you want to introduce yourself to our audience, let them know who you are, where you work, what you do, all that good stuff.
Sure, absolutely. My name is Roel Hoekstra, and I am the founder and president of a marketing firm called Aquila Partners. And we really do sort of specialize in generating high quality sales leads at scale. So to do that means that we have to be able to use sort of traditional marketing, problem solving, copywriting ideas, but then to really integrate them with today's technology. And today's technology really revolves around artificial intelligence. It's involved in everything that you see on the internet, and it's an incredibly powerful tool, and it is changing very fast.
Are you spying on all of us?
Yeah, pretty much.
I knew I liked you.
I have a really good friend of mine who's a computer data analyst type. She works for a large Fortune 100 company, and she introduced me to something called the cool creepy line. And I was talking to her about what we were doing, and she goes, yeah, that's called the cool creepy line. And you have to be careful which side of the cool creepy line you're on.
Sometimes you're on both.
It's a pretty sharp edge. So
there's like a matrix.
There are times where it's pretty cool in the sense that the internet is very useful to you if it's showing you stuff that you're really interested in seeing. And certainly all of the social media tools that we use, right, that we use every day, Facebook, Google, you name it, it's a better experience when you're on it and you see stuff that's relevant to you.
Sure. It's
creepy when they start showing you things that you talked about, an hour ago, or, all kinds of stuff. It's interesting, the cool creepy line. I do think in general that you said spying. I'm not sure we're spying, but we are trying to use all this data that's available to make advertising more effective for you, the consumer, for me, the consumer, as well as for our clients. The more effective you can be at putting the right message in front of the right person at the right time, the more you're going to sell, and the lower your cost of sales will become, because you're not wasting money. So it's out there. It's great. And boy, it's changing fast. So Kerry, you may say that this is not really your thing. I wouldn't spend too much time studying it because it'll change by the time you figure out what happened yesterday. It really is mind-boggling, the speed with which a lot of this is.
Like I mentioned the other day, hey, I wanted to get another shark vac, that moves around your house. And literally 5 minutes later, all over Amazon were sales for shark vacs. So
that's not right. Like, I'm not even kidding. That's sort of legal. I don't quite know how they're doing that. I know Apple is supposed to be turning off your microphone when you're not using it. I don't use any of the personal assistants because I don't like them necessarily listening to everything.
Right.
So I'm sorry, what was the question?
Like, give me some examples of what we're talking about with AI and marketing. Is it Alexa? Is it Apple? Is it when somebody, like when you type something in Gmail and the next thing you know, there's ads everywhere? Just kind of help me understand what you mean by AI.
So I use the term AI A little bit generically. So to make this work, we really need three things. You have to be able to do identity resolution. And that means we have to be able to know who somebody is on the internet. You know, when they're on a website, when they're doing a Google search, whatever, you have to be able to say that this is a person. So we have to know who a person is, and we have to be able to understand what they do online. So what actions they take, how are they converting. The third thing is just have huge amounts of computing power, right? Because if we've got all this data about what people are doing online, we have to be able to sift through that constantly, sort of trying to figure out who is doing the things that make them likely to take a particular action. So artificial intelligence has lots of meanings in this world. When I think about it, I'm looking at it at a very basic level. So like AI 101, which literally is pattern recognition. So let's hop to a quick example. So I do a lot of B2B marketing, right? So my clients are generally service companies, and I generate leads for them, right? Customers who are, or, you know, prospects who are interested in solving a particular problem that the client solves. So what I really want them to do is to somehow raise their hand, right? Fill out a form, express an interest. And when somebody does that, that's a lead, right? And we need to be able to say, all right, I captured that conversion, right? I know Rachel just bought something, and I mean, that could be a pair of shoes, or it could be, you know, filling out a form to learn more about something. What AI does really is then we need to be able to go back through data and sort of look at everything you did in roughly the 60 days leading up to that conversion. And with one person, that's kind of interesting, right? I mean, it's like kind of creepy with one person, but it's you know, it's like, here's all the things that Rachel did, and today she took an action that we're interested in. If you do that for 50 or 60 or 100 or 1,000 people, then you're looking back at each of their activities over that 60-day period, and you're finding out what's in common. Well, gee, you all went to this website, you all did this Google search leading up to the point in time where you expressed an interest. So that creates what we call as a conversion algorithm. Now we know what we're looking for. But then you got 350 million people in the United States, right? I mean, 250 million consumers, roughly speaking. You know, you then need to say, all right, well, how do I find other people that are doing the same activities? And then I have to identify them and show them an ad, right? So there's a reason that Facebook is the quadrillion-dollar company that it is, because they really have figured this out and mastered it better than anybody ever in history. And really, they've only done it in the last couple of years. What they're able to do, because they have billions of people on their platform, and you log into the platform, right? Thus the identity resolution. They know who you are. You're logging into their platform, and people are on it for hours and hours a day, right? So they collect massive amounts of behavioral data. They know who you are, and we now have literally unlimited computing power. They obviously have huge server farms of their own, but me as a small company, I can get access to as much computing power as I want, unlimited, through Amazon or Microsoft. So that levels the playing field. We can now do what they do on a not quite as, we're a little bit smaller, and not quite as, you know, large a scale. That's how you see it in real life, right? So their objective is to provide a user experience so that you stay on the platform. Therefore, they're very conscious about what ads they show you. It may not seem that way to the average consumer, but I can tell you their whole process is built around how do we make the user experience good? Because if you don't enjoy being on Facebook, you get off, and then their business model collapses very quickly.
So just so I understand, so as we're talking to our audience and other marketers, really the best way to be using AI is to embrace some of the tools that are out there for you already. So like Google Analytics, Facebook advertising, really any of the social platforms and their advertising, even though they have different targeting strategies in each of them. I mean, there's a plethora of information out there. To me, in modern AI, it's all collected for you, but it's how do you analyze it?
And there are fundamentally, at this point, kind of two different methods. The tools, AI, and all these tools that you talk about are useful, but if you're not following good marketing habits, they won't work for you, right? So what are good marketing habits? You have to be focused on the problem that your ideal target customer is suffering from. You have to be able to explain what makes you different and why somebody should buy from you. And you have to have an offer that is really attractive, right? So if you don't have those things to begin with, AI isn't going to help you any, because something that doesn't convert won't convert better on AI. It's still not going to convert. The beauty of platforms like Facebook and artificial intelligence in some ways is it allows you to test those marketing basics in a way that we never could do before, right? So like I've been doing this for 30 some years. And one of the things that's really interesting is what we do as marketers doesn't change. The tools we use to do it change. And the tools allow us to do it so much faster and cheaper, right? So I can tell you all kinds of stories about what we were doing in the 90s. I'm doing the exact same thing today. It's just that the scope and the speed and the number of people we can access goes up dramatically as a result.
When I talk about marketing strategies, and this is going to generalize it, but I always think of three things: the target audience, the message or the positioning strategy, and the go-to-market. So let's say we're talking about Facebook advertising for a second. The thing that's changed in the last, 10 years, that's a kind of a weird guess, but is that we used to, when we did target audience, was like, how old are they? Are they male or female? What are their jobs? Or where do they live? It was very focused on like what we could track.
Demographics.
Now it's all about motivation and behaviors. What are they like doing? What are they like reading? What are they interested in? So for example, we did a targeting strategy for local community pharmacies. It's easy to just say, I want a local community pharmacist, because that's not how they're self-identifying.
Right.
You have to look at what are they reading? What do they like to do? And you have to try to create these audiences around interest. And so it's almost like you're stereotyping people, which you are, to create behaviors and identify them. And I guess what I'm finding is that it's not quite as cut and dry as it used to be. I mean, I have on my team people who just analyze data all day, but not just data to numbers, data to behaviors. So you almost have to be like a sociologist in addition to a data expert in order to really maximize the information you're getting. I mean, that's the way I see it. I don't know if you agree or not.
Yeah, I think I do. So when you talk about that, what I think of the word is psychographics, right? So the things that drive us to do what we do, not just who we are. As marketers, we've been trying to get at psychographic related stuff all the time, because that's what sort of really drives you to make any kind of decision. In the last couple years, and I'd say 3, right, maybe, and it's been a glorious 3 years, in the sense that Facebook and Google have really made it easy, because all you have to do to make it work is feed them 50 conversions. So no matter how you break your sales funnel down, the magic number is 50 conversions every week. If you do that, behind the scenes, these AI algorithms are figuring out all the psychographics. They're figuring out who is going to respond best to that offer. But the one thing I see is that it's so important today to start getting control of your own first party data, right? That is the important thing. So when you're using Facebook or Google and their little pixel is running and it feeds their AI engine and they're delivering these conversions for you, it's all great, but you don't have any control over it, right? So I know one of the issues for people that do a lot of Facebook advertising is they've gotten kind of crazy with just turning off accounts left and right for reasons that nobody quite understands. And I have an example of that with a big client, and it was really terrible. Anyway, so I think that the key is you have to have your own first party data. That is really what's going to drive this going forward. And what that means is you have to know who your customers are, right? So who they are, what they do on their website, what conversions they took, because if you don't have control of that data, you're completely at the mercy of these black boxes. and the things are changing. Technically, the idea of pixels or third-party pixels are also sort of going away, right? Their effectiveness isn't what it used to be. So you have to be able to collect that data on your own.
Yeah.
Now, if I can put in just a quick little plug, we do that. we have identity resolution software now that will identify who comes to your website, who they are, job title, where they live, phone number, LinkedIn profile, all of that first party data comes across. And we're doing it for 50 to 60% of the traffic that comes to a website. So instead of, 1, 2, 5% opt-ins, you now got 50%, and you have all that first party data. So that the ability now to take that and move it between platforms, to do marketing by picking up the phone, by sending a piece of direct mail, by doing customized emails, to then even go so far as to start to really change the interface that they see when they come back to your website, right? So it's all about your own first party data going forward. The interesting thing, and I'll go back to this whole idea of first party data, it's going to become a big barrier to entry. So those companies that have traffic today, that know who their users are, that have conversions, they're going to be able to continue to take advantage of these targeting algorithms. Those people who don't have that are going to end up having to spend much more money to get there, right? So it will create a barrier to entry for those that are there now. And in some ways, think about what regulators are looking at. It's interesting. They want to make all this increase the privacy, but one of the things that they're actually going to end up doing is increasing costs a little bit and creating barriers of entry to new entrants.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be an unintended consequence.
You mentioned you have your own software for data collection. That must be a huge pain in the butt with all of the policy trends. I'm assuming that you have to follow them too to make sure that you're not breaking any laws, right? As things change.
We try to break as few laws as possible in the course of our business.
Right? Because then you've got the EU.
Well, so there are two things. Our program is not GDPR, whatever, GDPR compliant. My company is a part owner. We have our own identity graph, right? Just like Facebook and Google, they have an identity graph, right? Because you log in. We have an identity graph. So we've built over the last 7 years an identity graph of about 250 million US consumers. They're only US consumers. That's why it's not GDPR compliant. Because all data on the internet is for sale at various levels. So we have access. We actually acquire about 5 billion pieces of information every day, and it goes on to servers at Amazon, right? And then you're running these algorithms across it. So we build custom algorithms for our clients on the B2B side. So if you're selling accounting services, right? We can build out a custom algorithm to identify people who are, in the market for accounting stuff. We can also do that identity resolution, tell you who's considering you, right? Who's on your website, who's considering you. In the B2B world, it's all pretty straightforward because you need to have privacy policies on your website that say, hey, we're going to identify who you are when you come to our page. Whether or not you sell it, you want to disclose in your privacy policy. If you're running a business and you're on somebody's website, there's no rules against, their salesperson sending you a piece of direct mail or picking up the phone or, getting an email. As long as you give people the rights to unsubscribe, you're not going to have any legal issues on the B2B side. On the B2C side, the hurdles are much higher, and you have to approach that data in a different fashion. So you don't just use the identity resolution for direct marketing. You have to load it in, feed algorithms with it, create lookalike lists, stuff like that. You can pick up the phone and call people, but then you got to scrub it across do not call lists, and you get
there's a little more you have to
there's
do
a lot more to do
it.
on the B2C. It's very powerful, and I'll tell you, and just in case anybody from Costco is listening, because I used to do a lot of work at Costco, if you have a membership based B2C environment, right? So Costco has members, they sign up. If they were using our tool, they would know who is considering the purchase of window coverings, right? That they sell. And then they could pass that to their window covering vendor who could literally reach out and call them, because as being a member, they've opted in, right? So if you have a membership driven organization, you also have the ability to do that B2C in a better manner than if you're just, Home Depot, for example,
Right.
or Lowe's, or somebody that's not membership driven. But the data is still your first party data. And I think it's just the key.
There are opportunities for small and medium businesses who think that this is something that's way too expensive or way over their heads to necessarily get into. And
yes,
my
thank
eyes
you.
have opened to that. We talked about how quickly all of the tech is changing, and Facebook was here and then it was there. And where do you see things going from here? How do you see it changing? How do you see the trends developing?
I think that Facebook in particular, Google as well, especially with their YouTube platform, they're going to figure out a way to make it work in this new world. Like, there's just too much money at stake.
Right.
We're seeing the current platforms not working as well as they did over the last 12 months.
Yeah.
I don't think that that's going to last forever. So on the one hand, hang in there and know that there are a lot of really smart people trying to figure this out, right? So that's number one. I remain convinced that you can't just depend on these black boxes to run your marketing. So hiring, people internally or externally who really understand marketing, right? From copywriting to design and everything else, is going to be big, because the less the algorithms are good at putting the right message in front of the right person, the more important it is to have a good message. I do think, again, this is one of the reasons why identity resolution is so important, because there are alternatives to Facebook and Google and sort of the targeted audiences. When you know who your audience is, who's converting for you, you can get a better feel for like who they are, where they are, what they go to, so that then you can advertise on authority websites that your customers go to. There are lots of different tools to sort of get there. So hire people that know what they're doing, right? That's sort of number one. This is complicated. And if it works for you, I always call it career changing. Like when you get this stuff to work, your life changes. If you're a marketing manager somewhere, you get promoted. If you're a small business owner, get money in the bank and get to take a vacation. Like it is career altering when you get it right. And I would say that even though I was using some larger examples, it isn't very expensive. I mean, fundamentally, it isn't expensive. Again, our identity resolution tool is $1,000 a month. That's it, for up to 1 million, website visitors per month. So as long as you got, a couple thousand people coming to your website every month,
Makes
you're
sense.
talking, cost per lead of under $10. Like that's not expensive. So it's not necessarily something for startups, although if you got funding, I think it would be good for startups or real small businesses. But, we target companies that have, like 50 employees or more. So you don't have to be a really big company. There's just no Facebook gives it to you for free. Facebook and Google give it to you free, right? We charge you up front, but give you the data. They collect the data on your behalf for free and then charge you to use it.
It's like you're renting it, but they could take it away at any
They
moment.
have it and they'll charge you to use it. We give it to you and you can use it wherever you want, right? So that's just the different in business model.
Roel, we're running up on time. This is awesome. So before we finish up, I'm going to ask you the question we ask every guest we have on this podcast. What is the weirdest thing that's ever happened to you?
I've been around a long time.
It's like there's too many to choose.
There are a number of answers to that. So this does not have to be a business thing, right?
No, absolutely not.
You can do anything.
Almost.
No, really anything. Anything is fine.
I can actually tell you one of the most memorable, and I don't know if it's weird or scary. So this actually does go way back. And Kerry, you're a broadcaster, right? So this may actually resonate with you. was in the early 90s. I was early in my career working for a large national consulting firm. And my boss, who was a senior partner, was scheduled to do a big presentation in Chicago to 1,000 people on some topic. And I was helping him with it. And he came down with a cold like the day before, and he said, go to Chicago and give my talk for me. So I was all excited. Yay, because I did know it. He and I worked on this project. I put the presentation together. I didn't have any problem doing it. And I've done lots of small group presentations, 10, 20 people. Yeah. I walked into the room. They were actually disappointed to see me because my boss was a nationally known speaker and I was nobody. So once they got over the fact that the guy they thought they were going to have as their keynote speaker wasn't there, I walked into this room on stage with a podium, and the lights went on. And literally, I couldn't see anything.
Oh, yeah.
Completely blinded. And I'm used to engaging with the audience, right? I'm looking at you guys on the screen. I like to talk to the people that are in front of me. It's how I do it. I couldn't see anybody. And I literally had no idea what to say. And all I remember was saying, I don't know, 10, 15 words. And I realized that they didn't go together. Like they literally were like random words. And I had to stop. And I took a deep breath and I tried to focus on one person in the audience who was looking a little confused. And I just started talking to him and I got back into it. But I had this feeling like, okay, you just said 20 words that don't mean anything.
They're wildly incongruous, like tree.
But I'll tell you that
paper.
And there were 1,000 people in the room. Yeah. I mean, it was an auditorium, and I got completely rocked off.
It sounds utterly horrifying. I will tell you though, I don't know how well versed you are in speaking, but as somebody who helps people through those situations, you did exactly the right thing. You looked at one person and you focused on one person, and it doesn't matter if your audience is like 1 million maybe or plus, the way like when I used to do news, or whether you're sitting in a group of 3, you're always talking, it's an audience of 1, and that's how you make the most connections. So well done.
I think about it a lot.
Nicely done. And there's a little bonus for our audience, a little public speaking tip for you as well.
That's right.
Roel, you were absolutely amazing. Before we go, if our audience is interested in learning a little bit more about your company, what you do, possibly bringing you on for a project or some AI, how do they find you? Where do they get in touch with you?
Well, you can find me on LinkedIn easily. Just go look for Roel Hoekstra. It's a nice thing about a relatively unusual name. If you Google me, you will find me, or some professional windsurfer in Holland, one of the two of us.
Oh, there you go.
Or my company is Aquila Partners. That's AKELA partners, PARTNERS.com. We have a lot of educational information on our website. I've produced an AI toolkit, an AI training program, all kinds of things to get you to opt in. But we do want to, make it worth your while. So we work hard to deliver good content.
Fabulous. You were great. Thank you so much. And for our audience, thank you for our time. That was, of course, this week's episode of the Mavens of Marketing. We'll see you back here next week. Same place, same time. See ya.
It's a teaser.
What do you get when you combine a Shark Tank finalist and a 13-time national Pitchmaster champion? You get Precious Williams. And if you don't know who she is, you should. She is the pitch master. And I mean that quite literally. If you're not sure how you should construct your pitch, if you're not sure how it should change depending on which audience you're in front of, and if you don't know how to deliver, you need to listen to the next episode of the Mavens of Marketing.